When Emeka suggested she order a ride to the airport, she waved him off with a laugh. Why should she hide the luxury her husband had placed in her hands? The brand new red 2024 saloon was more than a car. It was a badge of honor, proof of her worth and Emeka's love. She imagined the looks on her friends' faces when she casually mentioned, "Oh, I just parked my car at the airport." The idea of boasting about her engagement gift thrilled her. For Doris, appearances mattered, and this was her moment. By noon, she was ready. Her suitcase was neatly packed, her bridesmaid's outfit carefully folded, and her beloved makeup box tucked safely in the trunk. Sliding into the driver's seat, she adjusted her sunglasses and turned the key. The car purred to life, its air conditioning washing cool relief against the midday Lagos sun. Doris grinned, her confidence swelling. With a flick of her wrist, she turned up the stereo, letting Ching Maddie's melodies fill the cabin. The music became her anthem as she pulled out of the driveway, luggage in tow, prepared to conquer both the wedding and the spotlight. The Lagos sun was relentless that afternoon, burning down on the asphalt as Doris sped confidently toward the airport. Her red 2024 saloon glistened under the light, a beacon of her pride and status. The music pulsing from her stereo matched her mood, carefree, untouchable, determined to arrive in Enugu with stories that would dazzle her friends. Then it happened. A sudden scrape of metal against metal jolted her from her rhythm. The sound was sharp, almost metallic teeth grinding against her car's pristine body. Doris' hands tightened on the steering wheel as her eyes darted toward the culprit, a rickety blue car struggling to keep steady in its lane. Its paint looked recently sprayed, the kind of cheap shine that screamed cover-up for age and wear. The driver had tried to squeeze in, switching lanes without grace or caution, and now he had brushed her car. Her eyes narrowed. "Imagine this nonsense," she muttered under her breath. Fury surged through her veins. To Doris, this was no mere accident, it was an insult. How dare this man, with his wobbling contraption of a car, scrape her husband's expensive gift? Her decision came swiftly, almost instinctively. With a sharp twist of her wrist, she steered her car closer and nudged his bumper deliberately. The impact wasn't heavy, but it was intentional. The squeal of his weaker metal folding in response gave her a twisted sense of satisfaction. "Tit for tat," she whispered smugly, eyes fixed on the road ahead. But the driver wasn't about to let it slide. Within seconds, he swerved ahead, cutting her off in a reckless display of anger. His car screeched to a halt, blocking her path in the middle of the busy street. Tires squealed behind her as other vehicles braked abruptly to avoid a pile-up. The man jumped out, rage already spilling from his mouth in curses. His voice carried above the hum of traffic. "Madam, are you blind? You don't spoil my car." His arms flailed as he gestured toward the dent in his bumper. Doris sat calmly in her seat, lips curled in disdain, her windows sealed shut. She didn't even bother lowering the volume of the music. To her, his shouts were background noise. One of the passengers in the hit car, an elderly woman, slapped her bumper with both hands. "Will you come outside to explain how you will pay for the damage you caused?" Doris could feel her patience thinning, her chest rising and falling with controlled anger as the driver continued his tirade. His words, full of righteous fury, grated against her pride. Enough was enough. She pushed her door open, stepped out with deliberate grace, and locked her car with a click, her mobile clutched firmly in her hand. The crowd stirred, sensing drama was about to escalate. She raised her chin, eyes sharp, and declared with biting clarity, "You hit me first. The only difference is my car is stronger." Her voice carried authority, a mixture of arrogance and conviction. Murmurs rippled through the spectators, but before she could bask in the strength of her rebuttal, one of the passengers from the man's car leapt in to defend him. "No," the young man shouted, pointing toward Doris with animated gestures. "You didn't wait for us, madam. You were the one who swerved into our lane. That's why you hit." Doris scoffed, hands on her hips, her voice cutting through his explanation like a blade. Mister, listen to yourself. I was on my lane. Did I come to your lane? The firmness in her tone made it clear. She would not be bullied, not here, not now. Still, the argument was going nowhere. To onlookers, it was a messy case of one word against another, but the evidence sat glaring under the afternoon sun. The battered, dented blue car, its weak metal bruised and bent, versus her glossy red saloon, not a scratch to show for the chaos. Then the driver had the audacity to shout over the noise. You must repair my car. Nothing happened to yours, but see my bumper. You must pay. Doris' laughter was scornful, bitter, and loud enough to silence a few murmurs. Day play, she spat back. Didn't you just say we both hit each other? Then let this teach you a lesson. Don't come and shout at me as if you're right. By now, the commotion had grown into a full-blown roadside spectacle. Passers-by gathered, some curious, some entertained, and others eager to stoke the flames. A few older men tried to mediate, suggesting calmly, both of you should drive to the police station. Let them settle this matter properly. Before Doris could respond, a tout barged into the circle, his rough voice booming with authority. Madam, let me tell you the truth, he sneered. Once you reach that station, they will first charge you both before anything. After you repair his car, they'll still charge you to release your own car. Na double walla. His words were meant to intimidate, to scare her into conceding. But Doris wasn't one to fold under pressure. She rolled her eyes dramatically, waved him off with irritation, and turned back to the driver. Her voice rose, laced with venom, each syllable deliberate. Oga, remove this your carton from the road, or I will remove it for you. With that, she spun on her heels, re-entered her car, and slammed the door shut in annoyance, her message clear. She was not to be toyed with. The crowd that had begun gathering gasped. Some chuckled nervously. Others shook their heads. The insult landed hard. To call a man's car, a car he probably scraped his life savings to buy, a carton, was an open declaration of war. The driver's face flushed deep with anger. He rushed toward Doris' car, fists clenched. In one swift motion, he slammed his hand against her side mirror, snapping it clean off. The mirror dangled helplessly, its glass shattered into fragments. Still, Doris did not flinch. Instead, she leaned out a little, her voice rising above the murmurs of the growing crowd. Break only what you can repair, she taunted, her tone dripping with arrogance. The man's fury reached boiling point. He raised his elbow high and brought it crashing against her side window. The glass exploded inward, shards flying across Doris' seat, a few glittering against her hair and clothes. A ripple of shock ran through the crowd. Now it was no longer a dispute, it was an outright spectacle. Doris' composure snapped. Her face hardened, her jaw clenched, and with calculated calm, she unlocked her door and stepped out. Her heels clicked against the pavement, her figure commanding even in chaos. She scanned the ground, spotted a metal rod lying by the roadside, and without hesitation, lifted it. Her arm swung with force, the rod slamming into the man's windscreen. The glass cracked like a spider web, splinters crawling across the surface before giving way entirely. The sound was deafening, like thunder cracking through the tense air. The man roared, his rage now uncontrollable. He darted back to his car, rummaged frantically, and emerged holding a jackhammer. The crowd stirred, some urging him to calm down, others pulling out their phones to record what had escalated into a full-blown street drama. He didn't listen. With a wild cry, he swung the jackhammer down onto Doris' front tire. The hiss of escaping air filled the air as rubber tore and sagged under the weight of destruction. He struck again, puncturing another tire, the red saloon groaning under the assault. Mary's fury burned hotter with every strike. She goaded him on, her voice sharp, damage all the tires. I'll buy your entire car if I must, and you'll rot in a cell until you fix everything you touched. Their insults flew like arrows in a crowded arena. The driver spat venom, calling her a witch, a prostitute living off some faceless sugar daddy. Doris' eyes blazed. She yanked up her left hand, flashing the gold band with pride. "You lie. I married," she shot back, her voice cutting through the crowd. "You must think madness belongs only to you." Doris grabbed her stick again, aimed low, and smashed at his tires in retaliation. One burst, then another. The two of them moved in a twisted dance of destruction, each strike feeding the other's fury. By the time they stopped, both cars were barely recognizable. The once glorious red saloon sagged with deflated tires, its windscreen broken, windows shattered. The blue car stood worse, its bumper dented, its windscreen and windows gone, its tires pockmarked with fresh wounds. Silence settled over the street. The crowd, now thick and buzzing with disbelief, stared as if they had witnessed something unreal. Some muttered, others laughed in nervous shock, and a few shook their heads, whispering about madness and pride. Two drivers stood amidst the wreckage of their own making, breathing hard, their faces a mix of satisfaction and dawning regret. In the span of minutes, a minor scrape had turned into a war that left both their prides, and their cars, shattered beyond recognition. The onlookers would carry the story far and wide, the day a Lagos street turned into a battleground, where insults birthed chaos and two grown adults wrecked their own vehicles in a contest of pride. And at the center of it all was Doris, the woman who refused to lose an argument, no matter the cost. By 3 p.m., Doris stood in the middle of the chaos, her once pristine red saloon now wrecked beyond recognition, her temper finally spent. As she tried to gather herself, a sickening realization hit: her purse was missing. Somewhere in the tussle, while the crowd surged and shouted, someone had slipped it from her car. Panic set in. Inside that purse were her essentials, her international passport, her ATM cards, even her cherished Rihanna lipstick. She cursed under her breath, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Doris dialed her dear husband. She explained the chaos, the fight, the wrecked car, the insults, and begged him to send one of his boys to take charge of the scene. Her husband, ever the calm anchor, assured her it would be handled. Relieved, Doris clung to that promise. Quickly, she booked an Uber. Luckily, one was just nearby. The driver, sympathetic to her flustered state, helped load her luggage into the boot. She slid into the back seat, settling in. She urged the driver, "Please, I beg, go fast. I can't miss this flight." Her fingers danced across her phone as she checked in online, clinging desperately to control, trying to steady her racing thoughts. Her mind replayed the disaster, the fight, the broken glass, the insults hurled. Now, to make matters worse, she had lost her identification and cash. Still, she clung to one desperate hope: if the driver pushed hard enough, she could still reach the airport in time. The Lagos traffic was mercifully light, but her heart remained heavy, knowing this trip had already cost her far more than she could afford. When Doris finally reached the airport, her heart was pounding with a mix of hope and dread. She dragged her suitcase across the polished floor, rushing straight to the counter, praying she wasn't too late. Breathless, she explained that she had already checked in online and begged the attendant to let her through. But the woman behind the desk shook her head firmly. "Madam, the gate is closed," she said, almost rehearsed. Doris' chest tightened. She pleaded again, softer this time, but the response didn't change. Instead, she was told the only option was to rebook. "That will be 95,000 naira, madam, and our next flight is by 7 p.m. madam," the attendant added. Doris froze, her mind reeling. 95,000 for a flight that will still have her arriving late for the bridal shower or miss it altogether. The weight of her disastrous day pressed heavily on her shoulders as she stood there, torn between anger, exhaustion, and disbelief at how quickly her plans unraveled. Doris sank into the cold plastic seat of the departure hall, her body slouched, her spirit utterly drained. The red saloon, her pride, was now wrecked on the street. Her purse was gone, her passport missing, and the flight she had pinned her hopes on had slipped through her fingers. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, and the noise of other passengers moving around her felt distant, like an echo in a tunnel. For the first time all day, she stopped fighting. Her trembling fingers reached for her phone. She dialed Emeka, bracing herself for the worst, for shouts, for accusations, for the lecture she knew she deserved. She had brought this on herself, hadn't she? Yet when his voice came through the line, it wasn't angry. It was calm, steady, and warm, wrapping around her like a blanket. "Haba Doris," Emeka said softly. "Obinna sent photos of the car. I beg first forget that wedding. Just come home. You've been through enough already." The gentleness in his tone broke something inside her. Tears pooled in her eyes, slipping down her cheeks before she could stop them. She covered her mouth, trying to stifle the sobs, but the weight of the day came crashing out all at once. She cried, not the loud, dramatic tears she sometimes used to manipulate situations, but deep, shuddering sobs born of shame and realization. Here was a man who had stood by her through every excess, who had laughed off her sharp tongue and shielded her from the criticism of others. Even now, after she had destroyed her own car in a childish display of temper, he still chose to comfort her. He still loved her. Her chest ached with the knowledge. She did not deserve his patience. She thought of Joy, her sister-in-law, warning her not to bring bad energy into the family. She thought of all the relatives and friends who had whispered about her arrogance, her quick tongue, her lack of respect. She had dismissed them all, convincing Emeka that they were merely jealous. But sitting there in the airport, broken and exhausted, Doris finally allowed herself to wonder if they had been right. For the first time, fear crept into her heart. Not the fear of losing face, not the fear of public embarrassment. Those were familiar battles. This was different. It was the fear that her reckless pride, her need to always win, her refusal to bend or be silent, could one day push Emeka past his limit. She feared that one day, his calm would crack, his patience would shatter, and the love he poured so freely into her would dry up. As she wiped her tears with the back of her hand, Doris realized she stood at a dangerous edge. Emeka's love had covered her chaos today, but love, even the strongest, could be worn thin by repeated storms. If she didn't change, if she didn't learn humility, she might lose the one person who saw her as more than her flaws. And that thought scared her more than anything else she had faced that day.